Hey everyone. So while I usually do all my charging at home, I've recently taken a couple of road trips, and here in Aotearoa there are a wide range of charging options en route to pick from. Right now I'm one of the lucky EV owners with access to Tesla superchargers in addition to the networks from ChargeNet, OpenLoop, Zed and others. But with this range of chargers, there's also a range of different pricing structures. And on the road, I found myself often wondering if I was better to pick a slower charger with a lower kilowatt rate, but also a low per minute rate, or pick a fast charger with a fixed kilowatt rate. Frankly, the prices are all over the show. And with idle fees to factor in, I also had to weigh up if I went for a fast charge and then wandered off to get lunch, how much more it was going to cost me if the kitchen was a bit understaffed. Anyway, I did a bit of a search to see if I could find a calculator that factored this stuff in. And maybe I've just gotten old and don't know how to use the internet anymore, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. So this may already exist, but I've built it anyway. I am not an Excel super genius, so it's a little bit ugly, and nor is this going to spit out a perfectly accurate result because there's a bunch of factors affecting charge speed, including the car itself, of course, but even the temperature of the day and the temperature of the car. This should give you a bit of a ballpark cost, however, to compare different charging strategies. Right, so let's dive in. Grab the link from the down belows and make a copy of the doc in your Google account. So this is your copy to keep. Feel free to decorate it with flowers or whatever. The only thing I ask is please click that like button, subscribe, and leave a little thank you in the comments if you can spare the seconds, so that YouTube gets the message that this is good and useful content. You do need to know a little bit about your car to make this work for you. So let me tell you about mine. I have an older Nissan Leaf with a 24 kilowatt battery, and I also have a Tesla Model Y, which is a 60 kilowatt battery. The Leaf is great, but I've had a bit of battery degradation, of course. So I included a little calculator just so you can get an accurate reading on that. So if I pop the 24 kilowatts in the original battery size here, and then I can use the current state of health for my car's battery, which is around about 70% based on my Leaf Spy reading, we get a remaining battery size of about 17 kilowatts. If you've got a newer car without much degradation, you can ignore that little calculator and just put your full battery size in there. The calculator accounts for the average usable battery capacity, so you can see if I put in a 60 kilowatt battery in there and tell it I want to charge from 0 to 100%, 0 to 100%, it works with around 57 kilowatts of usable battery for the kilowatts actually required for the charger. One other thing that you might like to pop in is the estimated range of your car. The calculator doesn't need this to work, but it's sometimes nice to know how many kilometers you can get out of a given price and charge time. So I'll pop in the Tesla one here, and you can see 60 kilowatt battery, charging from 0 to 100, we're getting 435 kilometers based on Tesla's estimate. If I put in my Leaf battery, 0 to 100, and that on the guessometer suggests around about 110 kilometers, we'll get that. Now, if I didn't charge this fully, it'll give us a different range in here. So let's start simple with some home charging. If I home charge my Leaf with its roughly 17 kilowatt remaining battery capacity off a basic 10 amp charger here, using my overnight rate, you can see that it's pretty cheap, but at this rate, it's going to take me some time as well. So 0 to 100%, 17 kilowatt battery, cost per kilowatt of about 12 cents. That tells me that we're going to need about 16 or just over 16 kilowatts to charge it. It's going to take about 9 hours to do it, and a total cost for me of $1.94. So a pretty cheap commute. If you try to fill up a larger battery, it becomes a bit ridiculous. So I've got a wall charger for the Tesla. And let's just update that range quickly. Same price per kilowatt in electricity, but obviously more potential range. And compared to the 10 amp charger, our time has reduced quite a lot. This is all fine, of course, but it's actually the en route fast charges where this becomes really useful. While I was away, I was paying a range of amounts. It was fairly common to pay 25 cents per kilowatt and either 15 or 25 cents per minute. So let's pop those numbers in and let's say 15 cents here. And they were typically 25 or 50 kilowatt speeds. So we'll pop that 50 kilowatt speed in there. Of course, I was very rarely charging from 0 and wasn't regularly charging to 100% either. So if you know the combination of speed, cost per kilowatt and cost per minute, you can look at what makes most sense for your charging and the use of your time. So here you can see that if I had two 50 kilowatt charger options, one was going to be 25 cents per minute and the other one was 15 cents per minute. I can very easily work out how much that extra convenient location might be worth to me, perhaps. The other thing you can see quite clearly here is how the calculation works if you choose a 25 kilowatt versus a 50 kilowatt. Because of the cost per minute here, choosing a 25 kilowatt charger actually ends up being a lot more expensive. The Tesla chargers were a little bit different. They were more per kilowatt, but they were also faster. 120 kilowatts or more, and they didn't have the per minute charge. So from memory, they were around 50 to 80 cents a kilowatt. So we can throw those amounts in and see the prices. Remember, we're charging here from 20 to 90% on the Tesla at 50 cents per kilowatt or at 80 cents per kilowatt. And you can compare something like that, so roughly $32 at 80 cents a kilowatt, to charging at the same speed of charger, but with a per minute and a per kilowatt rate of slightly lower. The fastest charger I used was a 300 kilowatt hypercharger, which is great, but the Tesla I have tops out at around 170 kilowatts. So even when connected to a 300 kilowatt charger, I'll use that 170 as the maximum kilowatt rating. That charger was 65 cents per kilowatt and then had a 35 cent idle fee. So 65 cents, no cost per minute, did have a 35 cent idle fee. The idle fee is the fee that you pay when your car has finished charging, but you haven't moved it. So we can put that in as well. And let's hypothesize that I was 10 minutes late back to the car. The calculator will show me what that total cost might be. Lots of older or more cost-effective EVs have a much lower maximum charging speed, perhaps 75 kilowatts. So that's the best that you're going to get from a hypercharger, regardless of how fast the charger claims to be. And this brings me to an important aspect of charging an EV, which is the fact that a fast charger is only at its fastest for a relatively small band. And the faster the charger, the less it can fill up of your battery at that full speed. The calculator accounts for that. So if you're interested, you can see what it's doing behind the scenes. It will warn you. But in simple terms, it takes a few percentage above 0 to get to full speed, and then from somewhere around 50 to 80%, depending on your car and the charging speed, the charge speed will start dropping off. So if I switch back here, so you can see that clearly. If I charge between 40 and 60%, that's going to take around 6 minutes. But if I added exactly the same number of kilowatts, only between 80 and 100%, that's going to take around 22 minutes. So if you have a cost per minute, that obviously becomes a significant factor in there. So at some point, the per minute charge becomes worth considering, in addition to how much your time is worth while you're waiting for the car to charge, of course. Now that's where we stand today, but in the last couple of days, there's actually been a bit of news that indicates things are going to start changing, with a move away from the per minute rate. Z have announced an EV charger network, typically offering 50 or 75 kilowatt chargers at a fixed per kilowatt rate of around 69 cents. So we can see what that does to our costs. More interestingly, ChargeNet are also shifting to a higher per kilowatt rate, dropping their per minute rate and increasing their idle fees dramatically. So on that hypercharger that I'd used, which I could get up to 170 kilowatts on, I will now be looking at a far higher cost. And if I was 10 minutes late, the $1 a minute idle rate gets expensive very fast. Let me show you the exact scenario. So previously it was 65 cents per kilowatt, and it's I was charging from 10 to 100%. This is roughly what I was looking at in terms of that charge cost. Now it's going to be 85 cents per kilowatt, so you can see it's gone up quite a lot. If you choose to use one of the slower ChargeNet chargers, you pay slightly less per kilowatt, but you also pay a lot more in waiting around time while your car charges. Now, I can understand the reasoning behind this. I mean, it makes them a bunch of money, but hopefully that money gets invested in more chargers, and they would also say that it means that they're not penalising slower charging cars. If I'm paying 25 cents per minute and charging at either 150 or 50 kilowatts, I end up paying quite different amounts. Now, both cars will pay the exact same amount. It's just that the slower charging car will take up the charging spot for perhaps 3 times longer, which might prove a little bit frustrating. We'll see. It doesn't matter so much on chargers up to about 50 kilowatts because essentially all cars can charge up to that speed. But an older Leaf capable of charging up to 50 kilowatts but tying up a 300 kilowatt hypercharger might prove a little annoying. Anyway, we'll see how that all goes over summer. Either way, enough of the politics. The point is, the calculator is free to have a play with and work out what charging option is going to make the most sense to you. As I said, if you do find it useful, please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel and let me know that this sort of thing is worthwhile. Thanks a lot for hanging around.